G'day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josh. You may also know me as the Captain, and I do have a comedic persona that I portray quite often here on this channel. However, today, it's not about comedy. It's not about any of this. Today is about remembering and respecting our men and women who have served this country in multiple conflicts around this world. There are many people who watch these videos who have served here and abroad, and they are our veterans, and it's my honor today to talk to two of them who wish to share their stories with you. So if you would do me the favor in sitting and listening to these gentlemen tell their stories, I think you will all understand how difficult it was for our men and women to return home from these conflicts and to go on with their lives. Listening to their stories today has taught me so much about myself and about this country and about the brave men and women who gave their ultimate sacrifices for our freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is their stories. All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining us today to celebrate and to show respect to the ANZAC spirit. He, of course, is well known within this channel, but we're going to use his real name for the first time, I think, ever. And we'll call him by how he used to be called. And I believe, ladies and gentlemen, it's Sergeant Chris Reynolds. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, mate.
It is not too bad. Thank you so much for doing this. For those that don't know, you are, in fact, a veteran where you have seen combat. You've seen the ugly side of the world. And I know that these sort of stories aren't things that get spoken about much, especially from your generation and so on. So I do appreciate you taking time to actually discuss this with us.
No drama.
For those that don't know your story, would you like to walk us through your military career?
I joined pretty well straight out of high school at 17. Joined the army because I was too young to be an ambo, which is what I wanted to be. So I was able to finagle myself a position in medical corps through Kapuka, and spent the first 15 years of my career as a medic and worked my way up to sergeant as a medic. Deployed to East Timor, ran a health section, doing a lot of hearts and minds stuff over in East Timor. But also dealing with, properly ill, sick and injured people. And came back to Australia working in regimental aid post in a standard unit with young soldiers coming in with a runny nose and wanting a day off. And basically my empathy gland got squeezed dry, and I turned my hobby into my trade and transferred into Signals Corps and had to take a reduction down to signalman, private soldier. And then spent the next 6 years working my way back up to sergeant as a signalman in the geek trade, IT. And left the army after 21 years. Deployed to Iraq as a signalman with SecDet.
And for those that don't know what that is, would you mind explaining what that is?
SecDet was the security detachment, Baghdad, and we were basically the security for the Australian representative office. We didn't have an embassy there at the time, but the representative office back then in 2003 was just in a suburban area just down the road from the Baghdad University, actually. We were just in the middle of downtown Baghdad. Unlike down the track, they moved the representative office into the green zone, which was a very well protected, highly fortified area. They still got missile hits, and we had people injured from random missiles. But the original SecDet building was just a half-built set of flats, apartment block, and it was nicknamed the Flats. And we did some dodgy shit there.
I could only imagine. Like but anyone that followed the Iraqi war, obviously we saw live on our television screens and on the internet not so much up to date, as it was happening information, but we all saw the strikes that led the way, and we all understand that even if you've known nothing about the Iraqi war, Baghdad being the capital isn't probably where you want to be during that operation.
Right from the outset, no. It was supposed to be quiet when we moved in. It wasn't that quiet. Being out on patrol or being out on a security picket, just tooling around on top of the representative office, just keeping eyes out or sitting up in the overwatch position, and the occasional crack thump of a round going past your head. It's somewhat disconcerting, yeah.
There's there are a few veterans that are part of this channel and part of our community, Sergeant, and that seems to be the common thread for those that have seen service, especially through Iraq and Afghanistan, was the crack thump and knowing true well what that was at the time. I could only imagine what would be going through your mindset, apart from your training and your years and years of understanding, warfare and defense. You're obviously extremely well trained in what you do. They don't just send people that don't know what they're doing in these type of security details. What was actually, if you can remember, and if you want to talk about it, what was going through your mind knowing when you're hearing these crack thumps and you're knowing that you personally are being currently shot at?
Just being glad that they're far enough away that with open sights on an AK-47, they're not likely to hit you. That was pretty well it.
Yeah. That's probably what you can rely on, isn't it? Understanding your weapon, not just your weaponry, but the enemy's weaponry, and understanding that you do have, at that time, I hope anyway, decent equipment on you, where the people that were coming up against you, I apologize for the dog, but the people that were coming against you, the enemy themselves, didn't necessarily have that kind of technology, but there was always, the chance wasn't zero, but...
No, it wasn't zero.
Yeah.
No. And it probably, as it progressed, it got more likely that people were going to get hit, because as in anything, evolution, survival of the fittest, the dumb ones, the ones that couldn't compete, they got killed or captured. The ones that were good operators, they were still out there. Still are to this day in some places. So.
And I think that's the thing we all forget. For those that aren't from a military background, a military family, or even part of the military fraternity, don't quite understand that what you see on movies and television isn't necessarily how things play out. Like your enemy can be quite intelligent. They too have operators, as you just suggested, highly trained operators that have done these through generations of their family, protecting their own land or taking on whatever forces they believe to be the evil side of things. And I guess what made, and you can please correct me if I'm wrong here, was the uncertainty of, yes, you knew that your enemy was out there, but it was the unknown when it came to IEDs, when it came to other people coming into Baghdad that necessarily may have passed the security checks to start off with. But
one of the defining moments of my career, I think, was when I didn't fire, and to this day I'm still glad that I didn't. I could have, and to give context, I was a medic and a signalman. Yeah, I served in some units that I picked up some other skills, but I wasn't a straight out gunslinger. I wasn't a trained gunslinger. So that is probably the reason there's a kid in Iraq that is alive today. Because, as I said, we had these overwatch positions from the flats. I was in an overwatch position. I saw a long barrel-looking thing come out from behind the top of a stairwell on top of a building that we had overwatch on. And it came out and it pointed straight at me. And I took a slight picture and I had a trigger pressure. And I realised it was a kid. Made the right calls to our command post. The OC went down with our interpreter. kid got called out by his father. The father whipped the kid's ass. But in that split second, my hesitation, and as the OC of the detachment said at the time, had one of the gunslingers been there, we would have been dealing, as in Australia, would have been dealing with a killed kid.
Yeah.
So that probably defined my career in that when I didn't fire, and that's because I wasn't a gunslinger, and I'm thankful for that.
So, Sergeant, have you ever told that story publicly?
Probably not this publicly. No, I have mentioned it to friends and family, but yeah, it's probably not opened up about it like this before. Yeah.
No one on this earth, even the gunslingers, would understand what your process was. Even to have pressure on the trigger, you've got your sight, you're in your 100% right to take that shot, and your care and love for the human being. That's why you were a medic. That's why you wanted to be an ambulance officer. Do you think that played the key role in not taking that shot, or do you think?
Absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
In your career there, obviously there would have been plenty of times where you've had to take that type of position, where you've had to look down the sight, you've had to take sight, and understand your training. This is what it's for. You don't have to answer this question at all. You don't have to answer any of these questions. But was there a time where you thought, I probably should pull this trigger? There should be a time here now where if I don't do this, thing could go pear-shaped?
I've never been in the position where I've had to hesitate. Well, that time that I did hesitate was the best time to hesitate. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, okay. Well, we don't need to go into any more detail with that. That's. I appreciate you sharing that story with us. I've known you for a very, very long time, and this is the first time I'm learning of these stories. So I appreciate you sharing this with us. Can we talk about one of the units that you were deployed with? Are we allowed to bring up one of the units?
Well, yeah. Well, I know what you're getting at. I did serve with the SAS, yes, but it was back in the early 90s. I was a black hat. I wasn't a beret qualified operator. I was their regimental aid post, but I did work with teams. I never deployed with the regiment. Having said that, when I did deploy with the Combat Engineer Regiment to Dili and Maliana, East Timor, back in the early, 99, I was the RAP sergeant. I did.
Which, for those that don't understand, an RAP is a regimental hospital primarily. Yeah.
Regimental aid post, yeah.
Yeah.
And over there, as I said, we set up a health facility, Maliana Health Facility. My little 3-man RAP got bolstered with additional doctor, nursing officers, another sergeant, several other medics. And so, yeah, we did a lot of hearts and minds treatment of the locals. I was 50-50 with childbirth. Some survived, some didn't. But that was the nature of where we're operating. But yeah, the guys that I did work with over west, they were patrolling there quite frequently, and they used to come by, and they knew that I was in Maliana, so they'd come by and I'd hook them up with beers and stuff.
You've had a pretty long career here, and though, as you say, you weren't an operator with inside the SAS unit, but do you think some of the skills of being with some of these operators, not only in training, but with the RAP setup and going through East Timor and things like that, do you think some of that may have played a part on how you handled yourself when you were deployed to Iraq?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Everything, when you're not in operations, everything is training. It's all a training environment, and everywhere you are, you're picking up something, and if you're not learning, why are you there?
Yeah. I apologise for the camera. It keeps jumping in and out. I do apologise about that. And obviously, this is quite a serious subject, so we don't want it to take away from what you're talking to us about.
3 years of the nightcap would
Yeah.
find this normal.
Exactly. For those that know our channel, this is fairly standard stuff. When you were returning home for the last time, you've done your deployment, you know that your military career is starting to wind down. And so it should have. You've given so much to this country. Do you believe that there was enough support, not just for yourself, but some of your teammates and other of your fraternity that came home to support what you had been going through? Because we're very quick to send people to these conflicts, but we're not so much as quick as to help in the wind down process. And that seems to be a fairly common issue amongst all current veterans and previous veterans. Not just from Iraq and East Timor and Afghanistan, but even dating back to Vietnam and obviously from World War I, World War II, our ANZACs came home and they had the ANZAC spirit, and then from Vietnam sort of onwards, it appeared that the support, not only from the military themselves, but maybe even the general public, quite as to the level as it once was.
You'd remember, as a Wagga boy, guys from Kapuka don't wear uniform.
No.
Didn't wear uniform, and that came back from Vietnam. You didn't wear your uniform in public because a service person just didn't have the respect that probably since I guess Somalia lifted it a little bit. What were the peacekeeping that we were doing, and I think the East Timor was what made a big change in the public perception. I know it made a hell of a change in Townsville because when the whole of the brigade deployed and Townsville realised that, we actually rely on the garrison to keep a lot of our people employed and paid. That made a big change to Townsville. It reached back in garrison roots and it made a change for the service people up here. But to the original question, I think in the last decade, they've made leaps and bounds. Prior to that, though, there is so much more they could have done and should have done. But I'm not a politician, mate. I don't know, how they justify their budgets and what they spend them on and what they don't. So, yeah, it could have been done a whole lot better. We still can do things better now, but they're improving.
Again, if this is too much of a personal question, shut me down as quickly as you want, but does it still, I wouldn't say the word haunt would be correct, but does it still cause any lasting effect to yourself?
Not really. I've got friends that have been in far worse mental places than I've ever got to. There's not much that will trigger anything with me anymore. I'm 17 years out of uniform, nearly 18 years out of uniform. I was fortunate to fall into the job that I got that was still working hand in hand with uniforms. So, it was a really soft change for me. It was as if I was still in uniform, but without all the rules. It was great. Others that have had that just straight up separation and having to walk back into a civilian workplace that just doesn't have any understanding of any sort of military thinking. I can imagine how it can do your head in. So for me, I was lucky. Intrusive thoughts and all that sort of thing long ago. There's the worst for me was probably the aforementioned dead babies, Timor, and that sort of thing. To say that didn't play a part in my corps transferring out of medical corps would be wrong. It did have a part, but I'm more past it. I've been through my counselling
Yeah.
a couple of times.
Well, from our interactions with one another, I'd have to put you up there with one of my closest friends, and I don't like to pry, nor have I made it public knowledge inside our community, Sergeant Reynolds, about your service, because it's not my story to tell. And I appreciate the fact that you agreed to this interview, and I appreciate that you have actually shared your story with us. For those that do know you on a social level, not only through our community, but through your friends and community who may not know your stories, I hope that this one educates them on what you've gone through, and to allows us as a community to thank someone like yourself, because there's a lot of people out there that may not know servicemen or women and know their stories, or they have a friend that has served but don't want to tell their stories. I can be totally honest with you and say that I've reached out to 4 other retired veterans, and I got 3 knockbacks who weren't quite ready to tell their story, and there is no shame in that whatsoever. But I hope in a small way they listen to your story and realize that it is okay. It is okay to share when you are ready, if you wish. You don't have to go through this yourself. There is people out there just like yourself, Sergeant Reynolds, who know what they've been through. And hearing some of your descriptions, especially with the crack thumps and things like that, which is the exact same words that I've heard out of their mouths, it helps me understand them better. So I appreciate that, and so thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Sergeant Reynolds, I hope you have a great ANZAC Day and you take time that you deserve to be remembered and to be thanked for your service, as well as the way that all military personnel, doesn't matter which branch, show the love and care and the respect for what our previous soldiers led the way for. So again, I thank you so much for your time, and I really do appreciate your story.
No problem. Thanks for having me on the show, Captain.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Always an absolute pleasure. That's why I thought I won't wear the gear today. I thought I'll show respect, because you definitely deserve that. So,
cheers, mate.
Thank you so much. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have interviewed this man previously on the show, but we are honoured to have him again with us. You know him as one of the greatest comedians in Australian history, dare I say the world. But a lot of people do not know this part of the story. He is in fact a veteran of this country. He was served very honourably in the Vietnam War. Ladies and gentlemen, Australian comedian Cole Elliott. How are you, good sir?
Josh, thank you very much. That's a lovely, the preface before about the comedian stuff. I'm going to send you $10 for that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's the only way I make my money.
Yeah. Once I got out of the Navy and away from Vietnam and all the rest of it, I need to laugh, and I guess that's where it come from.
It's a very interesting story. Your story. You actually have a really good book out, your autobiography as well, that covers a fair bit of your life and how it led to comedy. But I was wondering today, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us your story. What led you to join the service and go and fight for your country?
It's my family, actually. My family, the whole family had been to war. My mother was in the Blitz in London. She was in the Land Army. And my father was at Dunkirk, the old man. My brother Ralph was 1 Ra, Battle of Coral. My nephew, his son, Ralph's son, 27 and a half years SAS, Iraq. I was Vietnam. So it was, and it's funny, I went to Vietnam in 1967 when I was 17. No one asked me how old I was, but I was 17. And I was on the Hobart, HMAS Hobart, D-39, great ship. And it was the very first deployment that we had. And we were on loan. We were on loan to the Americans, really. We were under their command of the 7th Fleet. And our job was in the Gulf of Tonkin. And we had to stop the supplies coming down to the Viet Cong and NVA and all the rest. So there were barges and we were sent in to to take care of them, to stop their supplies, and then they opened up on us. So we come under fire quite a bit, and I can see what you've got a picture up there, the back of a head there, and that's where the bombs were dropping around. There was one guy here, this lieutenant, who's hanging onto a board. That's a fall of shot board. Yeah, that's it. And there's a little line in the middle. I don't know if you can get in close, but there's a little line in the middle, and that represents the ship. And all the other dots represent the accuracy of the North Vietnamese barrages. And we come under heavy fire that day. Don't try, it's going to mess you around. But the closest was about 10 foot from the port bow. Yeah, look, a lot of people don't realise what the Navy did over there. We were relieved by the Perth. She picked us up. And then the second trip of the Hobart, and I wasn't on it, thank God, we lost 2 guys to friendly fire from the Yanks. It was a pretty intense sort of place, and the work we were doing was pretty heavy. And I you know, at 17, you know, I remember the chief saying, look, they were stepping in the men close to us, and I remember him yelling, "Hit the deck!" I said, "I'm already down here." I was landing because my job was this, where spotter, AA anti-aircraft, and I used to have to spot where the shells were coming from, and you know, talk to the bridge and all that sort of stuff. So I was 17. I turned 18. 3 months or 2 months before I come home, and the 29th of the 7th, 1949 was when I was born, and that was my birthday. That day, the USS Forest blew up, and we went in to assist her, and she lost 134 lives. This is off Vietnam. It was a rocket was triggered by an electrical fault. Went in, hit some maintenance. It was just the worst thing to see. So I saw that, and you know, yeah. So there was, and then when I was 19, I was on the frigate, the HMAS Stewart, and a great ship and great mates on that. And we were with the Melbourne when the Frankie Evans was cut in half by the Melbourne, and they lost 74 blokes that morning, and we went in to assist. So when you see all that sort of stuff, and I was 7 years in the Navy, I ended up an instructor at Cerberus. I taught basic seamanship and NBCD, nuclear, biological, chemical defence, I still remember. I did that, and taught them about all the best bars to go to in Hong Kong and sing. So I don't know how much they learned off me. But yeah, I had 7 years, and you come out after you see what you see, you do come out changed. And my brother was in Wanra, and he was in the Battle of Coral. He saw a lot. My nephew saw a lot. And it changes your outlook on life.
Do you credit, I guess, your time in Vietnam and in the Navy with being such a young age, coming in at 17, like so many others joined the services at that age, especially in Vietnam? I was 16. I joined the Navy, and I'd been in the Navy for a year at HMAS Lewin, which was a junior recruit training, and you did 12 months, and it was a pretty tough school. And I did that, then went to sea, and I was just 17, and I was told to get on board the Hobart. She needed 2 men. There was my mate who was a month older than me, so I was the youngest on board. He was 17 as well. And then the closest to us was about 23 or 24, because the recruits were senior recruits, and even though they were ordinary seamen, the same rank as me, they hadn't been in the Navy as long as me, and I was 17, and I think I'd been in 18 months or whatever, that 2 years or whatever at that time, and I was sent to Vietnam. But they didn't bother to say, "Cole, how old are you?" And you know what? One of the things I wrote in the book, which I wasn't allowed to drink and I wasn't allowed to vote, but it was okay that they could fire at me. So, there's an irony for you. It's crazy, isn't it? It's how it all sort of pans out. Do you think when joining the service at that age and experiencing what you had experienced, with one, taking fire, getting so close to your own vessel.
Yeah.
Do you think that created, I guess, who you became later in life when you got into comedy? Do you think your naval experience?
I think it had a lot to do with it, because I really need to laugh. By the time I got out of the Navy, I knew that I wanted to do something else. I mean, in the bars in Singapore and Hong Kong and Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, Penang, all those Far East bars that I travelled to, we formed a little band, and I think we called it the New Nee Soon City Ramblers Jug and Jazz Band. We got it here. And I did all my songs, that stupid stuff I was writing, Who Put the Sand in the Vaseline, all those terrible songs I wrote. You'll never see a roof rack on a hearse. I did all that sort of stuff, and told gags, and loved. I love to watch people laugh, and when people come up to you, and I think, and we were talking about this earlier during the day. God bless you, Barry. Barry Humphries died. What an incredible performer, and he said it in a nutshell. He said, to watch people laugh gives you so much relief and so much joy. And I love to watch people laugh. And when I walk on stage, I give them my best shot, and I love it as much as they do. So, it gave me an outlet. I've been married to Karen for 50 years. We've got 3 beautiful daughters. I was going to say 3 kids, 1 of each, but I won't go back into routine. And 8 grandchildren. And by gee, that's what life's about. Family. It's all about family. But my comedy and I did do a lot of comedy, and I toured so many years, and my kids were calling me uncle. But I did my grandchildren. I get to spend a lot more time with my grandchildren, and family's everything. So I'm a very lucky man.
There's no secret here, and I'll be completely honest with you. The reason I got into comedy in the first place was because of you. I grew up listening to, your records, your tapes. My very first tape I ever owned was the Lighter Side of Cole Elliott. That was my very first tape. So that it was good comedy for me as a child, because it didn't have some of your adult stuff in it. There was jokes in there that I could understand as a young person, and I sort of started building my routine as a kid around yourself. And it wasn't until my later part of life that I got to not only meet you as a comedian. But I consider you, without a shadow of a doubt, part of my family, and we speak every day. And
well, we do speak a lot, and you do a lot of my work for me with your PR. You're fantastic. I call him Flash, because I say, mate, we should put that reel on and off. It's up there, and I go, you can't be that quick. No one can. I can't even turn my computer on that quick. No, you're very good at what you do, and you're a good comedian yourself. And I think comedy, yourself, we have laughed over so many things. And I think comedy, you've got to have a good sense of humour, and laughter is the best medicine. And I see a lot of my vet mates with PTSD, and I understand it. And I work for the vets when I can, and being a vet, I'm a very proud vet. When we got home, they didn't want to know us. It was horrible stuff. But I talked to Normie, I've talked to everybody, and we're all the same. But comedy was a great outlet for me, and I still love it.
That was going to be one of my questions, if you don't mind me asking, and please, no. If I ever touch on a subject where you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to. There's no thing here. But we have spoken to another military person today, and we spoke about the return home. And now that it's coming into ANZAC Day, we all remember World War I, World War II, and the spirit of the ANZAC, and we're so trained, I wouldn't say trained, but we're educated at such a young age about the stories of World War I, the stories of World War II, and them coming home as heroes. And then the Vietnam era came in, and things changed, and not for the best.
And it was politically motivated. Look. We didn't have a choice. We went into Vietnam. We had to go. That was our choice. We were allied with America and all the rest of it. And we were told that it was the Doppler effect from the communists coming down, and we had to stop it and all the rest. So we had our belief or whatever. But when we got home, I remember in uniform, and I had my uniform on, I had my ribbons on, which were part of my uniform, and I had to go up to get, in Sydney, I had to go and get the mail with another guy. And we got up there and we were surrounded by some people that, I wouldn't tell you what they were yelling at us, but it got scuffly. Copper broke it up. I got my uniform ripped in part of it. We went back down to the ship, and from that day, we were not allowed to wear uniform ashore, and we were not allowed to tell anybody that we were in Vietnam. I put my medals away for 20, 25 years. When it was accepted that we were still veterans and we were doing what we were told to do for our country. I mean, it was terrible over there. I remember my brother Ralph saying to me, the unions wouldn't load the ships with their beer to send them over a beer for Christmas, things like that, and I used to think, come on, I mean, it was bloody, it wasn't a good place in Australia in those days, but a lot of the veterans, and the RSL didn't want to know us, Returned Servicemen's League didn't want to know us. I mean, it was a different set of, look, we're talking, how long ago? 50 plus 56 years ago. Yeah. I come home and I was 18. I turned 18 in Vietnam. I was a veteran by the time I was 18, and I'd been in under fire, and I'd seen so much death and so much carnage through that era and further on. And I thought, I've had enough. I wanted to go out and make them laugh, and I did. And Kaz and I, we got married and we had our girls, and just absolutely beautiful. And we're very, very close. We're all very close. And they, between them, given us 8 grandchildren. And I'll show you something in a minute. We were talking about doing that song.
Yes.
And wait till you see my guitar. My 5-year-old gets it. She loves stickers.
No.
So
she does. I love stickers.
That's my guitar. And she came, can I put a sticker on your guitar, Papa? I said, of course you can. And that's every time she comes in, she puts another sticker on it. So yeah, I do all that. And family is what gets there. But I always am available for the veterans, and where I can, I try and help. I do charity work for kids and veteran and a lot of different areas. I'm very, very, very proud to be a veteran.
Well, you have a song, and it's not one of your, I guess, forward in the catalogue of work that you still do, but it was called What's a Pommy? And it tells the history of how Australia came to nickname the English Pommies, and it covers Tommies, which were a World War I soldier and so forth, and it has the full history there. And I learnt so much just from that one song, and then realizing that you have this like, everyone knows you for your comedic ability, but you have some beautiful songs that really show.
I can't take credit for writing all the songs that I've recorded. Like this All Gave Some. Alan Caswell rang me up, and Alan he's not arguably the most recorded Australian artist or songwriter. He is the most recorded. I think he's written for Cilla Black and, my God, and Alan and I are great mates, and Alan and I toured together. And just looking at my hand going up and down there, I am a little, I'm doing, hey, what could do? Oh, no, that's Trump, sorry. Barbie, you're fired. No, anyway.
He came up to me, tears in my eyes.
Can't help it. My mind goes back to comedy. But Alan wrote a song called All Gave Some, and he sent it to me. He said, Cole, I didn't do Vietnam, but I know you did, and I want you to have this song. And it just says it all. He's just such a clever man. And I put my little Col Elliott on it, and we came up with that. Do you want me to do it? Is that what you're saying, Josh?
I would love to hear it, if you're okay to...
Oh, all right, okay. Look, here's no studio. This is raw.
I don't think you've ever done it
on my sticker
guitar.
I have done this live, but usually there's a backing track with it, which is beautiful. But I like doing it live because it's heartfelt. Okay, this is a song called All Gave Some, and I dedicate this. In fact, I'm going to do it on the dawn service on Tuesday. But anyway, I don't know. In fact, have I just blown your timeline with this?
No, not at all.
But-
No, this
Okay.
video should be released.
This is just okay. This is a song that I dedicate to all the vets and all those people who cared. All gave some gave all, and when the price is paid for freedom, that's when heroes stand or fall. With their passion and their courage, they could hear their country call. All gave some gave all. We stand up at 6 o'clock for a moment of respect to the ones that kept on giving till they had nothing left. And at the setting of the sun, we will remember them. You see, it's a debt we can't repay, but we won't forget. And all gave some gave all. And when the price is paid for freedom, that's when heroes stand or fall. With their passion and their courage, they could hear their country call. All gave some gave all. You know, the spirit of the ANZACs, it still lingers on today. And our hopes and prayers are with all our young people that are all those miles away. Because like their fathers did before them, they do their country proud. But they've got to know that we're behind them all the way. And all gave some gave all. And when the price is paid for freedom, that's when heroes stand or fall. With their passion and their courage, they could hear their country call. All gave some gave all. All gave some gave all. God bless Ukraine, and lest we forget.
It's absolutely beautiful. I just get, you know.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, I don't think words could ever be said to thank people like yourself for everything that you've done for our country, and especially from Vietnam, when in a time where thanking you wasn't, I guess, you know, I can't even imagine what it was like. But on behalf of my generation,
Yeah,
you know,
thank you.
Like, thank you for everything, you and all the Vietnam vets.
Let's just hope, Josh, that all this unsettlement around the world and all the things that are happening now can be resolved, and because so many children, innocent people, and soldiers and sailors and people are dying, and Air Force, you know, God, you know, you just want to be happy. You just want to live your life. We've got enough problems with all our homeless and all the people trying to seek getting a house, and all the problems we're having today. We don't need war. We don't need war. It's useless.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. And as someone that has spent their entire life, I was actually baptised in Puckapunyal Army Barracks, so the military has been in my life for a very long time. Unfortunately, never was allowed to serve myself due to medical reasons, but you know, I guess coming from a military perspective, understanding what people like yourself
Yeah.
have gone through, but I'm hoping that your story encourages other veterans out there that may not feel it's their time to tell their story, should be encouraged that when they're ready, that their stories, there are going to be people there to listen. They don't have to go through it alone.
Yeah, and it's got to be. Look, it's a tough transition to come back to civilian life after you get institutionalized in the forces. And I still, to this day, live by a lot of the rules. I don't rubberneck. I don't look everywhere, and you find out where you want to go and go there. You know, and I was Navy. It just the discipline. You know, I still have it. I can't be late for anything, as you know.
Yep.
Where have you been?
Yep.
5 minutes late. You know, I just, but at the same time, you know, it can be tough on some of the vets, and you've got family is everything. If you can put your arms around your family, that's what life's all about.
Probably the best takeaway message from all of this. Mr. Elliott, I can't thank you again for your time, and thank you so much for your service. Thank you for sharing your story again with us here as well.
Thank you very much, Flash. I call him Flash because he's quick. But thanks, Josho. Good to talk to you, mate.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Elliott. I'll talk to you again soon.
Bye, mate.
Bye.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.